Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The rising prospect Fabio Wardley, who's currently 9-0, has a chance to impress when he faces the Ghanaian Richard Lartey on the 21st of November on the Ben and Formella undercard. And this originally wasn't going to be the opponent for Wardley, who was set to face Lucas Browne, but that one fell through due to some financial issues. And actually, this may actually be a better fight than that one, because Lucas Browne, over 40, pretty faded at this point, some serious questions about his durability. I think Richard Lartey has a better chin than Browne at this point, and it's likely to go longer than that fight would have. And at this point, Fabio Wardley needs some tests where he can get some rounds in, still look good, implement a few things that he's been working on in the gym, and then move on to the next one. So I think there could be more value in this one, although Richard Lartey doesn't necessarily have that same sort of name recognition as Lucas Browne. As I was saying about the Browne one, it's a good sort of resume builder because there's a little bit of a credit and name recognition attached to Browne's name still. But Richard Lartey, he is known to the UK public, having fought Daniel Dubois in a relatively fun fight in 2019, and then also fighting Nathan Gorman more recently. That one was a bit of a stinker. It went all 10 rounds. Nathan Gorman pretty much won every single round, although it wasn't the sort of fireworks that maybe we were hoping for. And it did expose that Richard Lartey, his technical ability is certainly limited. But his game, he comes forward, he throws punches, and he'll be looking to catch up with Fabio Wardley. So I'll just get to the press release which came out about the undercard. Fabio Wardley saying, Lartey's a great opponent for me at this stage of my career. He's a really strong and durable opponent that will definitely look to test me and take me into the later rounds. You've seen in his previous fights that he's not shy of a tear-up, so there may be moments in the fight when I'll have to bite down on my gum shield and get stuck in, which I can't wait for. So that is Fabio Wardley's statement. In terms of this fight, I actually think that Fabio Wardley could work towards a knockout probably in the first half of the fight. So this is a 10-rounder. I do think that he is a better, at least in terms of the eye test at the moment, than Nathan Gorman, who seemingly has really been struggling of late. Gorman came in overweight for that Richard Lartey fight at a career heaviest at 273 pounds. He was gassing down the stretch. It did look like Lartey himself was, blowing pretty heavy after a certain point in the fight, and he was there to be picked off, but Nathan Gorman just not able to do it. I think that Wardley, who always comes in shape, and we've seen that in his recent fights, won't have the same issues in terms of the gas tank. And I do think with the way that he puts his punches together, the speed, I think that's going to be an issue for Richard Lartey. He's not going to see some of them coming, and there is going to be a lot of holes to exploit. We saw that against Daniel Dubois. Richard Lartey can be caught and caught often, although he won't be shy about throwing back as well, and he did back up Daniel Dubois once or twice in that fight. And that's essentially where the sort of notion that Richard Lartey is a halfway decent fighter has come from, that one fight, because most of the rest of his fights in his career have, there's no footage of them really floating around. There's a couple of sort of fights in, halls in Ghana, that sort of stuff, grainy footage, but, there is nothing that we've seen of Richard Lartey that suggests he should be able to beat a guy like Fabio Wardley, who has been, actually making every poster winner so far. So I think what's going to happen early on is that Wardley will measure him in that sort of first, round or so. He's just going to size him up, but I think he'll be working behind the jab. He'll be looking to utilize some movement. He'll look to take the sting out of Richard Lartey. I think there will be some body shots. He'll be using the jab. He'll be a bit wary of what's coming at him early on, but I think from about rounds, 2, 3 onwards, he is really going to start taking control of this fight against Richard Lartey. And I think body work will be a feature of the performance by Wardley, and I do think he can stop him inside 5 rounds. And I think it's good for him and his profile if he's able to get a good win at some point, stopping Lartey, inside the distance, as opposed to, say, Gorman, who went all 10 rounds and didn't look fantastic. And then you have Dubois at the other end of the spectrum, who was in a sort of fun fight with Lartey, and that lasted 4 rounds. I think if he can have something more towards the Dubois end of the scale, even earlier, that would be be all good for his profile and the sort of developing sort of buzz that there is around Fabio Wardley, who did have a limited sort of amateur career, just a couple of white-collar fights, turned pro. He's a guy that's managed by Dillian Whyte. He has been looking very good in his recent fights coming up, and he's learning and developing all the time. So I think there's a lot of us who are liking what we see from Fabio Wardley. And I do think that this is, as Wardley basically said, is a good opponent for him at this stage of his career. 9-0. This is a perfectly legitimate fight. Remembering Richard Lartey has been ranked by the WBO before. He's been at a certain level in his career, but I think, he is sort of opponent fodder for prospects at this stage. So I think Wardley versus Lartey at this point for his 10th fight, yeah, that's fine enough. And after this, I'd like to see Wardley taking another incremental step up. Hopefully he goes in here, does the business, looks good. Similar to the way that he did in the Wardley fight. He was patient early on, didn't rush his work, and ultimately, within, 3 rounds, got a very impressive looking stoppage. I could see something similar happening here. And Lartey, he's open to being caught, so, it could end up being an impressive sort of stoppage. But what do you make of this matchup? What do you make of Fabio Wardley and his development? Do you like what you see? Is he a guy that can start to go on to, have some of these fights against the top 30 to top 40 guys and move on from there? I like what I see so far, need to see more, but he is looking good at this point. Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.